the first pick of the second round, much higher than any of the so-called experts thought they might be. And boys, I'll tell you what, this is just incredible for them to be that high up and going to the same team, the New York Liberty, and also joining Asia Dur again. I mean, wow. I mean, just trifecta, bonus ball. We got it all right there, guys. Case, you wrote on it today. Your thoughts on it?
Yeah, it's really exciting. Obviously, I think you get Asia Dur is now going to be a true two guard, which she can handle herself at the point guard position, but now she gets Sabrina Ionescu to play alongside her. That's a really great young guard core. And then they add Jasmine Jones, who played a really good three guard in college. We'll see if she can translate that, or if she'll have to get more creative in the WNBA. And then Kylie Shook making that team as well. The Liberty added 6 players in the first 15 picks, so it's going to be tough. They're a 17-player roster right now, and if they don't add any more in free agency, they still have to cut 5. So we'll see how that goes, but it's exciting for them to be on the team nonetheless. Um, Excited to see if they're going to have a season this year, or if they'll be able to get to training camp and see how they do. But none of these players are going to give up, if they don't make it on their first team. And I mentioned that in the article today. Jeff Walls likes to recruit tenacious players, and that tenacity pays off when you're scrapping hard to make it in a small league like the WNBA.
You know, Jeff, I realize what we haven't done yet is our Twitter information, obviously, in our stuff. But
So excited we
this is
just
such
dove right
big
into it.
news. Yeah, I mean, it's just like a giddy teenager running down the street with my driver's license, right? Uh, Walt Hopkins, the new head coach at the Liberty, came in with an idea to change the structure of this team. And he really made a big move on Wednesday when he got rid of Do Everything Center, a ball player that was incredible, that did a lot of good things for them. But unfortunately, she was just a little bit slow. Tina Charles could shoot the lights out, but she didn't fit into the format that Walt Hopkins wanted to create an up and down the court, shoot from anywhere, 3 point design team that took the emphasis away from the middle. Is he a mad genius? Is he going in the right direction here? What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, I don't know. He's certainly. He was talking about. He's been. Excuse me. Let me get my teeth in here. He's talked about going with a four guard lineup, which we've talked about some with, possibly happening here at U of L. And it's an interesting. I think more and more of the basketball world is embracing, if not absolutely, that's the way to go. At least that as a possibility, right? You want to have a lineup that may be capable of doing that because there's times that you need that. There are still times that you need some bigs in the middle and go with some long players that can control space down in the middle. But we've seen that it's a very exciting brand of basketball. It's certainly a lot of fun to watch. I love it. I love it a whole lot to watch that style of basketball. So, I think there's it's an interesting possibility for what may develop in New York. This is going to make this team a pretty young team, probably. So, I don't know. Maybe they don't see success this year, but maybe in the next year or two, as some of these players mature.
No doubt about that. And we'll get into much more on this. But hey, let's take a step back and go back to Case. Hey, Case, how about some Twitter? How about some scheduling, buddy?
Yeah, just like always, schedule has been a little bit thin, but we did have the WNBA draft last night, and we'll have the NFL draft upcoming this week. Will also be a virtual draft, just like that WNBA draft was. So, at least there's one Louisville player who projects to be a first-round pick, in Makai Becton, and maybe some others will be on the list in some of the later rounds. But so that's this week. So if you're a Cardinal fan looking for something U of L athletics related to cheer about, then it'll be watching that first round on Thursday night to see if one of the former Cardinal football players is going to be taken. And then if we move into Twitter, obviously I tweet is at best case scenario. Still haven't been tweeting very much because there still hasn't been a lot of sports going on. Spent my day yesterday mostly looking at all of the sports writers who were unfortunately furloughed by SB Nation. A lot of good, talented writers sitting on their hands for the next 3 months. So hopefully they'll get some opportunities to do some other things, which will be tough since they're all sports writers and there's no sports. But that's what my Twitter consisted of yesterday. Paulie tweets us at best or as at Cardinal Couple, not best case scenario. That's me. And Jeff tweets us at Cardinal Couple Radio and at Jeff McAdams.
I think that with SB Nation especially, and we've seen it in other online and also other websites where people in sports writing have been laid off. I've noticed that Eric Crawford, for example, has been doing a lot more covering Governor Andy every day at 5 o'clock with his tweets.
Yeah, he shared a little while back that he's moving off of sports a little bit. Still some coverage of sports, but because there's just not as much to talk about right now. And going back into some of the more of the air quotes hard news. So, it's an adjustment as for all workplaces, including the news organizations. So that's one of the ways that they've adjusted a little bit. And I think Eric does a very good job with it. I respect him as a journalist quite a lot. So.
Yeah, and
absolutely, he does. And I also think that he's a wonderful compliment with my bourbon with Bashir and then my tequila with chocolate 5 and 6 each day. It's a great side dish.
As far as other local media goes, we've seen writers for the Courier have to step outside some of their into the more broader zones as well, as they've been doing rotating furloughs, kind of covering each other's beats, as it were. But it's just the way it is in a media landscape like the U.S. has, where a third of it's politics, a third of it's news, and a third of it is sports, and sports is out. The media gets a little bit thinned out there. So we'll see how it rebounds as things go forward, I think.
Also mentioned Jared Anderson, who's occasionally with us, is not in this week. He's doing duties at the bank. However, he has speculated he's going to be off the next 2 Saturdays, so he'll be back able to join us again next Saturday. In case I think he tweets as Mr. Anderson Jared, if I'm correct on that.
That is correct.
Mm-hmm. All right, then. So follow him. He puts up a lot of pictures. He puts up a lot of things that he does, a lot of questions he has about sports society in the world. So always a fun read when Jared tweets. Yeah, and we missed him today, but we'll have him back again next week for you. Okay, guys, let's take a look at this. We had an WNBA draft last night. I'd written a little bit about it, and I thought that the first 5 picks where all the experts seemed to kind of agree on the first 4. And I was looking at sources like College Sports Madness, ESPN, Basketball Index, looking at what they were saying. I was also taking a look at some other sites like CBS Sports. Also, there were a lot of people, Bleacher Report, they all had their prognostications on who was going to be picked where. They all were solid on the top 4. They were also all solid in putting Jazz and Kylie either at the very end of the second round or in the third round. And in a couple of cases, these publications didn't even have Jazz going in the WNBA draft. So I tend to think the Tina Charles trade kind of put the wheels in motion for some changes. What do you all think about that?
I hadn't thought through the implications of all of that. I hadn't followed a whole lot of it leading up to the draft. I knew where some of the speculations were on some of our players, but I hadn't kept up on the other machinations going on with trades and other things leading to the Liberty practically dominating the number of players that are drafted. But yeah, I thought I speculated that Jazz and Kylie would be more valuable than their draft positions were being projected. I didn't know if any teams would also see that. Obviously, we know these players well. We watch them day in and day out. And I wasn't sure that other teams were going to pick up on it. I'm glad that the New York Liberty did. I kind of thought they might go later. I was surprised at how quickly they went. Very pleasantly surprised, of course, surprised that they went as early as they did, honestly. So, but yeah, it's great.
Yeah, you
You know,
mentioned the.
Case. Go ahead,
Sorry.
Case.
You mentioned the impact that the Liberty and Mystics trade had. You can see it directly with Jazz Jones. Her pick, um, the 12th overall pick, was directly from that Washington trade. And I think that the Liberty probably had Kylie Shook and Jazz Jones graded out pretty much the same as everybody else. But when you look at their draft strategy with a trade, they ended up getting the 10th pick. They ended up getting the 10th pick player. They didn't make that pick, but they had the 9th pick, 10th pick, the 12th pick, the 13th pick, the 15th pick, and then they were going to have one more pick in the third round. If they had those players graded out the same way as everybody else, and they knew that they probably wanted them on their team, then I guess if you're going to call it an overdraft, they kind of had to overdraft them in that way. Um, Otherwise, they weren't going to get another opportunity to take them late in the second round or in the third round. So I think they're valuable. I don't know that I'd call it too much of an overdraft, but I that definitely had an impact, I think.
You know, guys, everybody seemed to agree on who would be the first four picked, and that held pretty true to form. Monescu going first to the Liberty. Her teammates Satu Savely going to Dallas. Lauren Cox, the big, fantastic center from Baylor, going to Indiana, and then Kennedy Carter going to Atlanta. We got our first inkling of how things might be shaking up a little bit when Bella Allery, who played at Princeton, was not a household name, but a very, very good center, ended up going fifth to Dallas. And then somebody who everybody thought would go very, very quickly in Ty Harris dropped all the way to seventh down to Dallas. A South Carolina player beat her out as well, her teammate, which is Michaela Harrigan. The Liberty gave us an idea of the direction they might be going in their ninth pick when they took Megan Walker, incredible three-point shooter out of UConn. And then, as Case mentioned, they ended up getting the 10th pick, which was Jocelyn Willoughby, another great player who was just simply incredible in the way she played at Virginia for 4 years. Kitch Alaska, USF, Seattle Fine, whatever. She's a great three-point shooter. And then Jazz, boom, number 12. And you could just sense what Walt Hopkins was going through here. What surprises out of you guys came out of those first 12 picks there, obviously, besides Jazz, who moved up into it? I mean, did any of those 12 that I mentioned in their case, any surprises in those at all?
I think, obviously, I'm not as tuned into the general women's college basketball landscape, so Bella Allery going that early, I think was a bit of a surprise. Looked into her a little bit more. She's a good player, to be sure. But yeah, that one stood out to me. And then obviously Jazz Jones, just because of how she was being graded out and projected. It to see her get drafted in that first round was interesting.
You know, Jeff, there were 3 Oregon picks in the first 8.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to you? Does that confuse you? Does that make you why does that make it feel?
I don't know. I certainly Ionesco's first doesn't surprise me. What's her name? Sabado. I can never remember pronounce her name correctly. Sabali. That's it.
Yeah, Satu Sabali.
Yeah. Gosh, I can never get. I'm terrible with name guys. I don't know if you have figured that out yet. Going second is not much of a surprise to me. She's a very good player. Ruthie Hebard is Hebard. I don't know how she pronounces that. Is a very good player as well. So none of them individually are surprising. And it's not too terribly surprising that they all went pretty early. I'm having a little struggle with this because I feel like Oregon was really overhyped this year a lot. They're very good, to be sure, but I think they were overhyped a bit. And I kind of wonder how much I'm viewing this through that lens that I'm like, this seems like a little much. But they were a very, very good team. All of these players I look at each individual one, and I think they were very good players and probably just can justify their position. So probably ultimately not, but I have this visceral reaction going, come on, this is a little ridiculous. So, but I don't know, maybe not.
I have to wonder a couple of things. First of all, I'm looking at this Liberty roster like you did earlier, Case. I'm seeing a team that didn't do that great last year as far as their conference standings is ended up for the 2000, 19 season or 18 season, whatever you want to call it. Uh, there's some great players coming back here for the Liberty. They've got Brittany Boyd, an excellent guard out of California. Her teammate at California and also on the Liberty, Laisha Clarity. Very good ball player. Of course,
Yep.
we all know about Asia. That's for sure. We know what she can do. But do you remember the name Kia Nurse
All right.
from UConn?
Yeah.
She's on the Liberty, guys. Also another player, which was a novel to me last year. 6'9" center Han Zhu from China, her rookie year last year. One of the best WNBA names out there, Amanda Zawibi. She's also on that New York Liberty roster now. Megan Walker, a newcomer to it. Let's just kind of take a look at what you guys think that Jazz and Kylie can contribute to the New York Liberty. And I'll start with you, Jeff.
Yeah, the coach, and again, I've forgotten his name. Like I said, terrible with names. Talked about
Walt Hawkins.
Yes, yeah, that's him. That's the name. I'll probably forget it
It's
again.
like a Walt Disney, except no Disney. He's a Hopkins boy.
Yeah, that doesn't help. Anyway, he talked about in some of the interviews that he did prior around this how he was looking for versatile players. Yeah, both of the Louisville players, both Jazz Jones and Kylie Shook, are versatile players, right? With Jazz, you see her running around and she's hyped and super high energy that we know Jazz to be, but she's out there putting in some. She's a good shooter. She's not particularly an outside shooter, but she's a good shooter. She can do okay with it. She can dribble drive. She can pass. She can rebound. She can block. She's really got a lot of skills under her belt. You look at Kylie, and maybe you don't think of that as much because you see, well, at least 6'4". I really think she's closer to 6'6", but the lister is 6'4" still. But then you remember, wait, this young woman can pop out onto the 3-point line, and has a pretty good 3-point shooting percentage. We saw Elena Delle Donne do that coming out of Delaware and spending so much time in the WNBA. She's having some injury issues right now, but somebody that's big and strong and can play in the point, but can also go out on the 3-point line and bury the shot on you. Man, that's brutal to try to play against. Obviously Kylie, we know her so much as a shot blocker, and has really this past year developed her rebounding skills. So again, a lot of that versatility there that maybe if you don't know Kylie as well and haven't watched her play as much, you may not be aware of. So I think that's really kind of the key theme of the Liberty's draft board.
And what Jeff mentions here, Case, makes a lot of sense, especially when you take a look at he wants a team that's going to fly up and down the court and play on both ends of the court.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at Jazz. Jazz has really increased her defensive skills from when she came in as a freshman. She was a threat to make a steal just about any time out there. And, of course, when you speak about defense, when you speak about blocking shots, hey, does Kylie Shook come to mind? Yeah, I kind of think so. She was the Defensive Player of the Year in the ACC. Let's talk about how they're going to expand this New York Liberty team on offense and defense.
Well, I think as I review this roster a little bit more closely, I kind of gave Kylie Shook lower chances to make this team, but the more I look at it, the more she seems like she could fit in really well as a backup center. If you're assuming that Amanda Zawibi is going to be the starting center now with Tina Charles out, she's 6'5", 250. She shoots the 3 ball at about a 33% rate. She had her highest average season, or highest points per game average last season at 8. So she's going to play a very similar style to the way that Kylie Shook plays, where she can get out on the line or, play in on the block. As far as that goes, and we know Kylie Shook can get up and down the court because she's had to do it under Jeff Walls. You could potentially see them both in at the same time, and Kylie Shook's going to be the third tallest player on this team at 6'4", behind Hanju at 6'9", but really lean at 6'9", and Amanda Zawibi at 6'5". So I think that her stock on this team is greatly increased just by what they have available. But defensively, absolutely, she is the all-time leading shot blocker at UofL now for her career. She knows how to play defense. She knows how to get into position. You don't catch Kylie Shook out of position very often. And like you mentioned, Jazz Jones, very active defensively. A lot of the late conversation about Ionescu going number one to this Liberty team is her defensive situation. It's not the best, but getting active guards on defense if you're going to play fast up and down is going to be a great benefit. And Jazz Jones is conditioned. She stays excited. So if she's on the bench, she's going to be ready to jump into the game at any moment and keep the energy level up. So I think they definitely both add a lot to this team if they make it.
I think when you look at what Ionescu can do, what I know her for is somebody who can distribute the ball very well to a group of scorers. Well, guess who they got on this team that can score? Brittany Boyd, Letitia Clareton, Asia Dorr, Rashonda Gray. They've also got Jazz. They've got Kia Nurse. They've got Jocelyn Willoughby. They've got, my gracious, they've got Kia Stokes, who was an excellent player at UConn. Megan Walker's coming in, another great UConn player. Amanda Zowie B. And even Shatori Walker-Kemper, who played a very big role last year.
And we haven't mentioned yet, I don't think we've mentioned yet, Liana Odom also got drafted 2 spots behind Kylie by the New York Liberty. Another very good player that's capable of scoring.
I was going to bring Liana in a little bit on later, Jeff, but go ahead.
Yeah.
You got the Liana can of worms open. Go with her.
Yeah.
Talk about her.
Another versatile, great player coming out of Duke. Hard work ethic there, when you come through that program. So, yeah, I mean, it's just you keep adding on. There's another player in that same sort of cut of versatile players out there. So it just really adds to it. Man, this it's a shame they're going to have to cut 5 of them because, man, this class could be amazing if they were able to really build on each other like that.
I can remember a conversation I had with Jeff Walls back during the season when we were previewing the Duke game. And I said, of course, Coach, when you think of Duke, you think of Haley Gorecki a lot. She's a do-everything. And he stopped me right there and goes, I don't. I think of Liana Odom. Mm-hmm. He said, Liana Odom's going to be an WNBA pick. Have you ever seen her play? Have you seen her length? Have you seen what she can do? And I'm like, I was getting to her, Coach. So when Jeff Walls thought of Duke, he thought of Liana Odom first, and then Haley Gorecki. Landed the 15th pick, and of course Haley went all the way to 31. Is headed to Seattle. Liana Odom is that kind of ball player who is really a whole heck of a lot like Jocelyn Willoughby, who guess who is also going to the Liberty. Your thoughts on Liana?
Yeah, I think she's a really good player. She ends up being the last player from the draft that is on the New York roster, with them trading their last pick. Erica Ogwumike, who, if she makes a team, will end up being the first trio of sisters, the Ogwumikes, joining Arike, or no, that's Ogwumbuwale. There's 3 Ogwumike sisters. I know this because I saw it on Twitter last night. But they would be the first trio of 3 to play in the WNBA at the same time she stays on a team, headed to Minnesota now. But the
other 2 are Nneka Ogwumike and Chiney.
We'll get there eventually.
Yeah, Chiney Ogwumike. Yeah, I'm saying it. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. I'll say it that way.
That's just the way it goes sometimes. But back to Liana Odom. She's a good player, like you said. She grades out a lot like Jocelyn Willoughby. They've got Megan Walker as well. That's why I was saying Kylie Shook maybe has a better chance moving into a combo center forward position, because that stretch forward position is jam packed for this team now, and that's just in the rookie class. Not to mention what they already had on the roster. So. They've got some tough decisions to make. Like we said, they still have to cut 5 before the roster deadline. So we'll see how that goes.
We'll definitely see how it goes. And I guess one of the key things we have to think about as well here and speculate on is When does this get going? There were no clear and obvious answers last night when they talked to the NBA president. There is no timeline for this season yet. If you move this season further into the fall or late summer, then guess what it runs into? College football, pro football, eventually the NBA. The time slot where they are scheduled to play is a good one for them because basically there's not a lot of professional activity going on. I'll run by you guys around the circle. If they move the WNBA, let's say, to an October start, for example, what's that going to do to their attendance? What's that going to do to their television availability, things of that nature? Go ahead, Jeff.
Obviously, like you said, it starts putting the season in a little more conflict with other activities and other sports, and certainly including football, but also including potentially the NBA. But the flip side of that is that there is a potential because so many of the WNBA teams, by design, are in NBA cities. There's the potential of playing some games with scheduling and doing like some double headers that might result in some increase in some attendance and attention for it. That'll be tricky to work out, but the potential exists there, and it could be interesting to see that, to see what it does for the fan base. I'm hopeful that you would see some support for that type of thing if that's where the season, if they decide to move the season later and do that versus potentially cancel it entirely. There's a potential it could be a positive for it. I think it's an outside potential, but it may be. It either could be a positive or maybe the least bad option available to them.
Case, your sentiments on that?
I was thinking the same thing as Jeff, as far as there's the potential for some co-branding and co-marketing there. The WNBA has been pushing on the NBA, which, unlike a lot of men's and women's leagues, they are actually under one parent. They're very closely held. The WNBA has been pushing on the NBA for additional support financially from branding perspective, and so they could really lean into that. I think what you run into, obviously the time slots for games and television is going to be tougher, regardless of what you do as far as the live games go. And the other issue is that you're going to put a lot of your players in a very tough spot. We've already talked about earlier this week, Jasmine Jones signing a contract with a French team, and their league starts in August. So a lot of the European leagues are that way. The NBL is over the winter as well. If you start pushing the WNBA season later, then you've got players who are under contractual obligation to two teams. And some might not pick the WNBA if it comes down to it. So you run into a lot of issues outside of just domestic scheduling the further that you push this outside of the normal season.
It's a very, very good point as well. And yeah, it's all about the entertainment dollar. Maybe in some cities, yes, it isn't as much as it is in New York, because when you take a look at New York and the multiplicity of professional teams there, yeah, they're going to be fighting for that dollar. And if they've got to fight for that dollar when you've got, let's take, for example, the Mets, the Yankees, the Giants going on, you've got pro basketball, the Knicks are playing, you got ice hockey, the Rangers are going, the Islanders are going, my gracious. Where do you find money from coming back from a struggling economy to attend all this stuff is certainly a very good question. So that's a very good point, Case. The ACC did very well in this draft, guys.
It did. Most number of players from a conference drafted with six, I want to say, 6 or 8, maybe 8.
I'm going to name them off for you, Jeff.
Yeah, let's go for it. Okay.
Here we go. First off, of course, number 10 was Jocelyn Willoughby, played at Virginia under Tina Thompson. Okay, then you had Kylie, of course, 12 or 13. Jazz, 12. Then we moved to Leanna Odom at 15. Beatrice Montbrier went to L.A. She was the 20th pick. You go to Kobe Thornton, who Arthur used to brag about quite a bit down at Clemson. She goes to the 27th pick. Haley Garecki, the lesser of the two Duke stars, according to Jeff Walls, at 31. And then Florida State superstar Kia
Kia
Gillespie
Gillespie.
goes
Yeah.
at 32. So, yeah, just take a quick look at it, and I think you were right on that. I think it's 8 picks that come out of the ACC, which is almost 1/4 of the total 36 picks. 8 picks ACC. A nice showing for the conference, sir. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And they've been crowing about it on Twitter, justifiably. They didn't have top picks. They didn't have, I think what was their top pick in the number 9 or 10 around in there. I think it was number
Yeah, actually,
yeah,
Jocelyn, yeah.
number 10. So not necessarily the top picks, but certainly numbers of them. I think really just demonstrates the level of play across the ACC. And we've said this before. There may be some other conferences that have better teams in them, but I don't think you see any other conferences that have across the board the competitive level that the ACC does. Yes, there's differences between ACC teams. We see some that are better than others and some that are maybe not so good. But we talked about, this year you had a Boston College coming on being strong, which was really weird to see, but they were doing a great job. So you're starting to see that parity in the ACC, I think, pay off at the next level.
I think one of the things that we think about when we think about what the Liberty could be, and somebody we haven't talked about a whole lot yet, fellas, is our own beloved Asia Dore. She had the injury late last year. She had to sit out some ball. She's actually had hip surgery. The reports at Asia's camp is she's 100% ready, raring to go, exercising well, looking good. The effect of Asia on this team, and I'll start with you on it, Jeff. This could be an amazing ad, an amazing player to come back after being injured last year to join this lineup, which looks fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's interesting a little bit of parallel between Asia's pro career so far and her college career here at UofL. When she came into UofL, she was coming off a groin injury. She had not that great a year her freshman year. I mean, it wasn't bad. She's a hell of a great player, right? But maybe not the freshman season that she could have had if she wasn't injured. She runs into an injury situation her first year in the pro levels. If she can come back, and if she can come back healthy and stay healthy, we know she's capable of doing some amazing things on the court. Some people talked about her in terms of being Shoni Schimmel plus defense, right? We know she's got the capability. We know she has the skills. We know she has the work ethic. And is just, a delightful person, and I'd love to see her do well. And I think the potential is there. You got this incredible roster that's going to have to be whittled down some. I think she makes it. I think it would be crazy to cut her from it, particularly if she's healthy. And, I think the sky's the limit for her ahead. I think she could really have a breakout year if she really is truly healthy. That's the critical question.
That would seem to be the key point here, Case, is Asia, the old Asia, the one that, can drop 11 3-pointers on you and smile and grin and slap the floor after she does it. An Asia Dore in the backcourt with Sabrina Ionescu. That's pretty mind-boggling, isn't it?
Yeah, I talked about it briefly earlier. Asia's going to have to create for herself a lot less now, I would say, if you've got Sabrina Ionescu there. I think looking back at her season, what's a positive out of it is that she was 18 of 22 from the free throw line. When you're injured, you've got a hip injury. She shot 46.7% and 29.4% from the floor and from 3-point respectively. If you're struggling with a hip injury, if you're struggling to recover from said hip injury, then you're going to have some trouble with your jump shot. But to see that her free throw percentage still quite good at 82%. She's got the shooting stroke is still there. It's not like the shoulder injury that she had to deal with briefly, where that can really affect you from a shooting perspective. As long as she can rehab, get her legs back under her, literally and figuratively, and be able to get up and down the court and move and get that jump shot back in rhythm, I think she's right on the cusp of being able to recover.
And Jazz Jones last night was kind of like a promotion director for the University of Louisville women's basketball team as well. She was talking about past successes, but she went off and said, hey, not only this class, but you take a look at next year. Dana Evans, if she's not a top 5 pick, I'll eat my hat, or words to that effect.
Yeah.
And then she goes, and then take it the year after that. Take a look at what Eve Halligan's going to be in a couple years. She's going to be fantastic. And Asia kept going on. I mean, not Asia, excuse me, Cass. Jazz kept going on. She said, and guess who's coming to town? Haley Van Lith. Have you all ever heard of her? And following her, Peyton Verluston. Take a look at it. Jeff Walsh really has lined up quite the arsenal, right, Jeff?
He really does. It's been you've had those teams that you've looked at and said they don't rebuild, they reload, right? And a lot of times that's been used with respect to UConn, that phrasing in women's basketball for many years. And I really think that Louisville's becoming one of those teams. We graduate 5 this year, but I mean, I'm excited for the year ahead, right? You graduate 5 really good players, and yet you're still looking at a team that I think has Final Four potential again. Um, that's incredible to see. It's a testament to their recruiting. It is a testament to the program that has been built and how it's not just about basketball. It's about more than that, because these players are not just looking to come and play at a place where they can play good basketball and win championships. They're looking at a whole package of things, and Coach Jeff Walls and his staff and the program there have really done a great job with it, and I think that's something we can be proud of.
One of the things that you also kind of have to look at is we're bragging about this backcourt that the roster on the Liberty could be also with Monescu and Dewar, but Louisville next year's potentially got a starting backfield of Van Lith and also an incredible Dana Evans.
Yeah.
That sounds like a pretty good 1-2 punch to me, guys. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's hardly potential, right? Like that's what it's going to be. Haley Van Lith has shown that she's ready, right? I think she could have probably played point guard in college this year if she wanted to, and now she's going to have another off season of training. Obviously, it won't be on campus as we might have hoped, but from all accounts, she's extremely easy to get along with. We've seen videos of her playing against her brother. She's staying in shape. She's still working on perfecting her craft as she gets ready for her time in college basketball. I think it's going to be very exciting. I'm looking forward to it as it's going to happen. There's no, oh, it'll be great if she's, kind of good. No, this is going to be an exciting backcourt, and I think that people are going to be terrified of it in the ACC and potentially throughout the rest of the country.
Yeah, and I'll add a name to that you left out, Mikasa Robinson. Yeah, I mean, what does she add to that too? That whole, parade of people.
Well, take a look at what Mikasa can do here.
Yeah.
She is an excellent distributor. She's an incredible defensive player. Her middle name, I think, at birth was Hustle, because she's everywhere and she does everything on the court that you could ever ask from her. All we asked of her, and all I think the coaches have asked for, is get the shot a little more in line, make a few more baskets, and do things like that. But hey, if you get either Evans or let's say Van Lith get in foul trouble, they're going to look down that bench. They're going to see Casa, in addition to the Smiths, Alana and Kiana Smith as well. 2 very, very good ball players. Kiana sat out last year. Alana's transferring in, where she was a National Junior College First Team Player of the Year. Boys, I'll tell you what, you could spend the rest of the show talking about the potential that Louisville has next year at the guard position, and that's not even getting into the bigs. So you have to kind of wonder about one thing, and it's something we've talked about in the past, is distribution of playing time. I mean, it's way too early to come up with any type of starting lineup, obviously, but some names you might throw in there, Jeff?
Yeah, there's that. It's going to be tricky between, I think, in the point guard position between Mikasa Robinson and Haley Van Lith, right? You've got a known player who's got skills that, like you said, we want to see her shooting get a little better, right? So that she can truly be valuable. But you've got a known quantity there versus this incoming freshman who's spectacular and dynamic and very well hyped, but really you don't know how well she's going to do in this system and in this lineup. So I think one of those two, Dana Evans, is almost a lock, right? E. Balagoon, I think, is in there. Gosh, I don't know. Molly Lockhart in the middle, maybe. I don't know. Uh, I'm not sure between her and Liz Dixon, who you put down in the big position to start, or maybe one of the, one of these transfers coming in that I don't know as much about. So I think there's some hard picks in there for sure. You there?
All right, you got me again, Jeff. Sorry about that.
Yep.
I did a little maneuvering around here a little bit on my screen, and I think I kind of temporarily lost my conversation with you guys.
There we go.
But, all right, Case, so let's throw it at you. Jeff Walls calls you up on the phone and goes, Case, give me 5 starters for the first game.
Yeah, I got to pull up a roster because it's going to be tough.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I think I said it last week, something to the effect of Dana Evans and then throw 4 darts, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, dartboard.
I think that still holds up, but let's make it a little bit more realistic here. I think that Van Lith is going to make. I think she's going to make the starting lineup. I know that's a little bit, maybe a bit perspective, but I think that Jeff Walls has not been afraid to start freshmen. I think we've seen that throughout his career. It's not something that we're going to be worried about as long as she can limit turnovers, which I don't see why, unless there's just something, she just gets overwhelmed by the lights or something, which I highly doubt. Then I think that she's there. So you got Dana Evans, Haley Van Lith. I think that we saw a lot out of Balagoon this year. I think she's going to be in that 3 spot, and then you have to decide how you're going to play your team, right? Are you going to make it a small ball or a standard lineup for the starting lineup?
Yeah,
as it were.
Yeah.
I think Dixon has a lot of potential to step in. There's a big gap left by Bianca Dunham and Kylie Shook gone, and Dixon saw the most minutes of any of the forwards after those two. So I think that she's probably a safe pick. And then for the 4 spot, I don't know. I don't know. If I have to pick somebody,
I'll throw out Norika Kono.
it's tough. Yeah.
Yeah.
Norika Kono,
Yeah.
Kiana Smith, Alana
Right.
Smith, either of those two would be good options.
Right.
You have a ton of options for that 5th starting spot, I think.
I think Jeff Walls has probably hung up on you by now and said, never mind, in case I'll call someone else. But
Good, he shouldn't have called me in the first place. I don't blame him.
that's right. It's just your team, coach. You pick them. I'm just going to watch them. We have talked earlier in this week. Case had covered it in an article earlier, and I was fortunate enough to get an interview with 2021 commit, a 5-star guard coming to us out of DeSoto, Kansas, Peyton Verhulst. Guys, in addition to being a fantastic ball player, the Gatorade Player of the Year in Kansas, this is one very intelligent, brilliant, friendly, and conversational young lady coming to Louisville. And I tell you what, I'm as excited about her as I've been about anybody in a long time coming to the Ville. Straight up, honest to you. We had a great chat. We talked. Did you guys get a chance to hear the interview? Hopefully you did.
I did not, unfortunately. I need to get better at that. I've been busy with work. It's been a crazy week.
Yeah. And that's fully understandable.
Yeah.
The actual audio itself got quite a bit of obvious love in Kansas,
Yeah.
around DeSoto at Bishop Hayes High School, and then also other places. Some of the interesting things about her, she was actually quite the volleyball player, Jeff. I knew you would love this.
All right.
Earlier in her career, and had to basically make a decision in the 8th grade. Is it going to be volleyball? Is it going to be basketball? One of the things that helped swing her to basketball is she attended a Louisville basketball camp as a 7th grader and fell in love with the program then. What do you think her favorite food is, guys?
I have no idea.
Anybody? Case, a guess?
She's from Kansas?
Yeah.
I don't know. Corn?
No.
I don't know. Kansas is known for some steak,
She's in mashed potatoes.
Mm.
Mashed
Well, that's a great
potatoes
choice.
is her favorite food.
I can't fault her on that one.
Yeah. And her second favorite is a pepperoni and extra cheese pizza.
I'm not a
Now,
big fan of pepperoni, but okay.
if she's ever going to try the two together, like putting the mashed potatoes on the pizza, that could be very interesting.
That
She
might be
said she may
good.
have to try this during this social distancing.
Yeah, it could be
She's
good.
from a family of six. Yeah, a family of six, so she has plenty of people to
Oh,
practice with at home and their backyard cart. Her sister, who also played for Bishop Miege and graduated this year, who's a year older than her, is headed to the University of Central Florida as a scholarship player down there. So the talent obviously strong in the family there. I asked Peyton about who had the potential to be the best out of all the variables, and she said, my seventh grade youngest sister
mm,
has more potential than any of us. So
nice.
let's hope that she can get to a Jeff Walls camp
Yeah.
soon and show Coach Walls that ability as well. Uh, if Jared was with us today, and I think he's probably muting and listening to us, he would love this. I asked her what her favorite music was, what her favorite movie was, and she said, I've got to admit it, I'm just hooked on Disney. I love Disney.
Yeah.
I watch Disney. I listen to Disney before games, Disney music. I asked her if she could sing the words Let It Go to endear herself to the Wall's daughters forever. And of course, she said, Oh, I just love Lola and Lucy. They're so cute and adorable. If you haven't heard the interview, please go back and listen to it in the earlier Cardinal couple column this week. It'll change your life, I think, in hearing what kind of person she is. And one of the things, she was a National Honor Society student, guys, last year.
Nice.
And do you know what she told me? She said, I asked her what was one of the toughest players that she had ever played against. And she said, I'm going to take you back to when I was in a camp with Kennedy Carter back before she was famous. And I found out right then, and I said to myself, this girl is going to be something really special, incredible. Guess where Kennedy Carter is now, guys? Number 4 pick in the WNBA with the Atlanta Dream.
Yeah.
Prophetic? I think so, yes. So, just a wonderful ball player coming in
Yeah.
to the Jeff Wall system, and I think it's one that we're going to really enjoy.
What I'm curious about is how long her connection with UofL basketball really exists. I mean, if you look at her Twitter account right now, her Twitter avatar is a picture of her in a Louisville jersey, and I'd say she's 2 in the picture, maybe 3, probably not 3, probably 2, maybe even younger than that. Like, there's been some sort of connection with UofL basketball for a long time for this young lady, so it's interesting.
I've got a question myself, though, if that's a picture of her or whether it's a picture she took of a young Cardinal fan when she was at the KFC Center for the Team USA game.
It's
Yeah, I'm not.
it's
They've got an ACC. It's got an ACC logo on it.
yeah, true.
Because I
Yeah,
thought the same
that's
thing.
true.
Jeff. When I
Yeah.
saw when she announced her commitment and I looked at those photos, I was like, wow, she's been a fan for. Wait a second.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I didn't notice that.
Doing the math in my head, I was like,
It's-
she's 16 now, and we joined
Yeah.
the league 7 years ago. Okay, that's not her.
Yeah, it is. There is. It's definitely it's not a candid shot from like at the
professional
KFC.
photo,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a professional photo. It's got a white background, so it's not like from the KFC Yum Center at a game or something. But yeah, okay, maybe that's not her. Okay, that's a possibility that I hadn't thought of. So okay, interesting.
I know that she said to me earlier that when she came to the Yum Center for the Team USA game against Louisville, it was her second time seeing a game in the KFC Yum Center. The first time around, she got to see the Cards play UConn in the KFC Yum Center, and a game that Louisville won that night. And she said the fans that night just drove me berserk. They were crazy. I was going nuts, and I wasn't even committed yet, but I was sure thinking about it after that game. So she got a chance to sit with Haley Van Lith. How important was Haley Van Lith in swinging her decision to Louisville? I guess we'll never really know for sure, guys. But you put those two in the same row, sitting right next to each other. that would have been a heck of a conversation to listen
Mm-hmm.
to. I'm going to tell you right now.
Yep.
Okay. So certainly very excited about her in 2021. She's the first formal commit, a five-star guard, as I mentioned, who played for the number one team in Bishop Miege in the state of Kansas, and also a team that had gotten through the quarterfinals and was getting ready to play in the Kansas girls Final Four when the music stopped and they came to them and said, "Congratulations on your quarterfinal win. We've decided the season's over. Sorry about your luck, kids." That's got to be heartbreaking. Okay,
Yeah.
we've heard it in other cases, but just think about that case. How would you like if somebody came up to you and said, "Case, y'all look great in the quarterfinals in soccer, but you can't go to the semis now"?
Sorry, muted. I think it's tough. That is definitely a story that is everywhere, right? It happened in Kentucky. They canceled the boys and girls Sweet 16s here after having already made it to a certain level. So that is extremely tough. I would hate it. I hate it for all the other players that experienced. It's just, really unfortunate for um, for youth and college athletes in particular. I think it's tougher. Obviously, for professionals, it's unfortunate they were doing their job, but for some of these players, whether they be high school athletes who aren't going to make it at the next level in college, college athletes who are not going to make it at the next level in pros. I mean, they missed once in a lifetime opportunities, right? So that's tough. And fortunately for Peyton Verhulst, she's going to get another chance at a state title. But there are a lot of players across the country who won't, and really across the world.
I think that's very sad indeed, and I do. But she does get that second shot at it. Let's take a look for a second at a completely different sport where we got some, I think, rather distressing news come to us earlier this week that our head women's soccer coach, Karen Ferguson Days, is a fixture on campus. We love Coach KFD to death. She's turned out some incredible teams. She's also got a husband who was the head coach at University of Cincinnati until, guess what they did?
Yeah.
They deleted the program
Cut the
from
whole
their
program.
athletic programs.
Yep.
Case, tell me what's going on here. Why and is this something that unfortunately we're going to see more of?
Yes, it is. Just straight out of the gate. Um, non-revenue sports are at risk, but also at smaller schools, revenue programs are at risk. College basketball teams, if college football season can't happen this year, we're really going to see some teams that don't make it. Um, just a few years ago, we saw UAB folded for financial reasons. They were able to come back. Uh, they were able to get another football program and be going again, but there's a lot of teams that are in dire straits across the country, both at the FBS level and below. And when you look at teams that are or schools that are on the cusp of being able to keep a high revenue sport like football going, and then you look at the non-revenue sports, they're in danger. I think that men's soccer is probably going to be a little bit tougher, just because, or a little bit more likely to start folding sooner, as we saw with Cincinnati there, just because they are players are more likely to leave the states before their college age or skip out on college if they're good enough. And men's soccer program is a little bit more expensive to run, just because they're usually opening bigger stadiums. Louisville is blessed in that they have a good soccer atmosphere in the entire city. They have a specific stadium assigned for men's and women's soccer. That I don't think that program is in any danger, but there are definitely more teams that we're going to see start folding, especially if news comes out that the football season is in danger.
Jeff, I got to think about this, especially and let's take a brief departure to men's sports. If we're going to follow in the path of a UC and cut a men's sport, where do they go? It's obviously not going to be men's basketball or football, okay?
Mm-mm.
You've got Jim Patterson Stadium out there where the baseball team plays. I don't see that happening. You've got beautiful Lynn Stadium where the men's soccer team plays, okay? Golf's not a very expensive sport to play,
True.
and they've got the beautiful Cardinal Club out there in Simpsonville where they can go play at. Is there a men's sport on our campus that could be on the firing line? I'm having a hard time coming up with one, pal.
The only other one that I could think of would be swimming and diving, but again, with Ralph Wright, man,
And
that's a
the
hard pill to
success.
swallow. Yeah, maybe some of the maybe like Jared just commented in our chat, track and field or cross country potentially, but there, you don't get if you're trying to save money, you don't get a whole lot of bang out of your buck for that, you know. So I don't know. Yeah, I tend to think looking at the list, soccer's probably going to be the most likely one if that's what it would come to for us. Yeah.
I think Louisville's in an extremely unique position in that it's one of the most profitable
Right.
athletic departments in the country, right? When we think about teams and programs being at risk, I don't think that Louisville is one. I think any soccer program that's sharing a football stadium, they're in trouble because it costs a lot more money to open those than it does to open Lynn Stadium for a game. Teams that have to rent stadiums that don't own anything of that nature is in trouble. Louisville, you know, uh, a very profitable athletic department, a very independent athletic department in that teams have their own stadiums. Every team has a place to play, so I think Louisville is in a very good position where they're pretty safe.
Another thing that we could possibly look at just quickly in the few minutes we've got left is if Louisville decides to take another route and cut out one of the Olympic sports on the women's side, which would break my heart. But
Yeah.
when you take a look at the women's sports there, some wonderful facilities, state of the art facilities where good teams participate in. Are there any potential women's sports that are on the cutting edge block, guys?
Oh, a bunch. You start to run into Title IX concerns anytime you start doing that. But just going down the list, I don't think basketball is going to go away. But you've got field hockey, you've got lacrosse, you've got rowing. Rowing's a pretty expensive sport. You've got soccer again there. You've got softball. All of these big team sports are the ones that are going to be the most likely because that's where again, you're going to get the most bang for the buck if you're trying to cut costs out of your budget. That's where you're going to get the big bang for the buck. And sadly for me, volleyball would be one of those as well, I think.
I think lacrosse you have to look at as one of the toughest ones because of the amount of travel that they do, and because it's going to be pretty high on the list of other schools. You would have to think, just because lacrosse is not a very profitable sport. It's a big team sport. There's a lot of travel involved, and if more teams are getting cut, then that would mean even more travel involved and less conference revenue and the like. So I think that one would definitely be hurting.
Yeah, I hate to think of lacrosse, fellas. I even hate to think of field hockey playing there at beautiful Traeger Stadium on campus. But
Yeah. I think
that
if you're
fact is fact. Big rosters, low attendance.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think if you're choosing between lacrosse and field hockey, I tend to probably go for field hockey. As an overall sport, lacrosse is a growing and thriving sport, and field hockey really is not as much. So I think you have to look at overall trends on that as well. So I would tend to go towards field hockey before lacrosse, honestly.
A really good point as well.
Yeah.
And let's just hope and pray that it doesn't trickle down
Right.
to Cincinnati is not in the Power Five conference. Let's face it, okay? They haven't had the luck that Louisville has had in attendance in a lot of their athletic events. Okay, they don't draw nearly as high as we do in football and basketball, which are your revenue producing sports. Let's face it, okay? So cutbacks had to be made there. Let's hope that the Power Five schools, which Louisville is one of, in one of the conferences that is,
Hmm.
can somehow maintain the athlete programs that they have right now. I sincerely hope and pray for that, Joe.
Yeah.
I think one of the important things has been the forward thinking of Louisville's athletic directors, both Tom Jurich and Vince Tyre since he took over. They've made some unpopular decisions in um, making some of the sports create more revenue. We saw the price of baseball attendance go up, but baseball attendance didn't go down. So that's just increased revenue. Same thing happened with the soccer programs. The cost to attend went up, but people still came out. And some of that extra cash infusion is going to help in situations like this. You help create a rainy day fund and you get to a more sustainable position. And I think that while those decisions may have been somewhat unpopular at the time, they may come to have been very useful now.
I have to agree there. Guys, we've had a wonderful and great discussion on primarily women's basketball today, but brought in some other very good items as well. Let's go ahead and jump on into our final thoughts segment. And Case, you've got the hot iron right now. You start us out with your final thoughts.
Um, you brought up a good one, and I'll kind of wrap it up here. I mentioned it before. It's not over. If you're a fan of a small school, if you have, hopefully everybody listening is a fan of UofL, right? But if you're a fan of a small school that maybe you attended or that you keep up with, they could be in danger. If you've got some extra cash on hand, athletic departments could always use donations. They make a lot of money, and some of the figures that you look at look a little uh, they look a little eye-opening when you see large numbers like that. But that's not to say that a lot of that money doesn't go right back into facility costs and scholarship costs, and teams don't, or schools don't have donation options for their athletic department for no reason. So on the flip side of that, universities are going to be struggling outside of athletics too. So if you've got a donation, obviously any charitable donation right now is going to be beneficial. But if that's if college educations and college athletics are one of your passions, then that could be a good place for some of your, if you have any excess money to go.
That's a beautiful sentiment and thought, Case, and I hope that people will follow your advice and do that even more than they're doing already. All right, Jeff, what you got for me?
Yeah, I want to give a shout out and some congratulations to Erin Fagers. She's Cardinal forever. Graduated in 2015. She spent 3 years playing volleyball at USF, transferred to Louisville for her senior season, and contributed to a great year her senior season on our volleyball squad. She's been playing professionally overseas a lot. Was in Greece when all of this coronavirus stuff came down. Made her return back to Houston, where she lives, and she was just named as the volunteer assistant for the coming year for Rice Owls, Rice University down there in Houston. So congratulations to her. She's a wonderful person that I've gotten to speak to a few times, and glad to see her doing well and taking some first steps into coaching.
Very
I don't think
excited for
possibilities.
possibilities.
Yeah. And I don't think she's done playing yet either. So just to be aware. So maybe do a little bit of both.
Let's hope she doesn't show up in your Thursday beer league down at Sidelanders down there when the summer comes back.
Right.
Could be a
I'd take
tough
her on my
out
team
for
for
you.
sure, though.
Probably not want to go net to net with her.
Nope.
Though, right? Final thought's going to go to somebody that I've gotten to know over the last couple years. She has an incredible story about her. She's been through some of the most incredible hardships and things that we can't imagine. Is Yaya Diop. Yaya came to the States. She basically was in a private boarding school when she first got here. She eventually made it to Pittsburgh, where she played on a scholarship. She came to Louisville just when it looked like things were going to roll for her. Guess what? She's injured. She has to sit out the season. The spirit overcomes that, though, when she comes back. She has a very successful senior season. Now, not a lot of people thought that Yala would be included in the WNBA draft, and sure enough, she wasn't. But I do believe that she has a very, very strong and very, very potentially great career ahead of her in European League basketball.
Absolutely.
Once that she can get back over there and once she can play. More than anything on Yaya, though, I want to say to you, your heart is 3 times the size of anybody I've ever met, and I'm gonna miss you a lot. But I know you're gonna go on to great things, Yaya. Absolutely so.
Amen.
All right, guys. Pass the plate. No, we can't do this. Social distancing. We can't pass the collection plate. Fellas, let's come back and vow to do this again next Saturday. Huh? We'll have fun with it.
Yeah.
And Case, go ahead and play a little Hazel for me. I mean, no, we're not doing that anymore. Never mind. Okay, fellas. Jeff, get us out of here. I'm done.
All right. Thanks, guys.